Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. My name is Carrie Lubold, and I'm the Associate Director of Financial Aid here at SUNY Plattsburgh. We've got several events coming to you this fall from Plattsburgh regarding the admissions and financial aid and student life experiences here. Tonight is about financial aid, and we're going to start with the basics, the application process and what that entails, and then what follows the applications and how to look for financial aid. So we're going to go through those steps a little bit, and then we'll have future events where we cover more of the process that follows the applications, how to receive your financial aid award letters and interpret them and understand them, and what to do about understanding all the costs of going to college and budgeting and things like that. But for tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the process and why you should even begin the financial aid process. So I encourage everybody to apply for financial aid. That's whether you are positive you're attending SUNY Plattsburgh or you're still considering multiple colleges. The application process is free, the federal aid and the New York State financial aid applications. They are confidential, so you indicate on your FAFSA what colleges you wish to receive the results of that application. And those colleges, whatever office is designated as the financial aid processing office, they'll receive the results of that application, and that's kept in that office and is not shared with other offices on campus or externally of the campus. The information you provide on the FAFSA, of course, is what we use to determine your eligibility for things like your federal financial aid, that's student loans and work study and the Pell Grant and stuff like that we'll talk about shortly. But we also use the FAFSA to identify your entire financial aid award package and give you all of the components of the financial aid resources we see as being available to you to help make paying for college possible. So it prompts, in most cases, at most colleges, the delivery of your financial aid award letter. So it really is the starting point for getting an understanding and a full picture of what financial aid opportunities are available to you. So we're going to talk a little bit about the process of applying for financial aid. It really begins with the FAFSA application. So the FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So you're asking the U.S. Department of Education for financial aid assistance. And I've listed on this slide that you're seeing some information on the different types of financial aid programs that the government offers. There are some grants available, student work study, which is an employment opportunity for students, parent loans and student loans, things like that. So you may hesitate when you see that list of financial aid opportunities and wonder if it's worth your while to go through the application process. Maybe you do not anticipate qualifying for grant opportunities. Maybe you are hoping to avoid student loans and parent loans, which of course is understandable, but I still encourage you to submit the FAFSA application. It really does give us a very clear picture of your family's financial circumstances. It allows us the opportunity to discuss with you when those circumstances change. So for example, your income on the FAFSA might reflect a very stable household income, but if that income changes and somebody becomes out of work or retires, then we have the opportunity to say to you, well, let's see if your income circumstances have changed enough that maybe there's some additional type of financial aid resource available to you that you weren't initially awarded when you first applied for financial aid. Also, not so much here at Plattsburgh, but there are many colleges who use the results or data elements of your FAFSA to determine some of their own institutional awards. So they may use some information or components of your application to determine maybe some need-based scholarships that the college offers or that is available through their endowment. So again, we don't do that here at Plattsburgh, but if you are looking at other colleges, you may want to fill out the FAFSA for that reason alone. The actual application itself begins with gathering something called an FSA ID. The FSA ID acts as your electronic access and signature to federal aid applications. So just in the same way that you need a PIN or a password to access, for example, your bank account online to get all that sensitive information about your bank account, the same applies for the federal government. They're not going to let you access and enter and receive data about your personal financial information and sign off on that personal financial information until they've identified you as you. And when I say you, I mean the student, because the student is the financial aid applicant. So the student themselves is going to apply for an FSA ID, and that will be their ID for signing the FAFSA and submitting a FAFSA. And then at least one parent in the household who is considered a custodial parent for FAFSA purposes is also going to apply for and receive an FSA ID. Now, you may have heard about the FAFSA over the years, and you may already be groaning about the idea of having to submit the FAFSA application because it is involved with financial data and some complicated figures sometimes. But quite honestly, the hardest part for families the last couple years of going through the FAFSA isn't the application itself. It has been for the last couple years the FSA ID application process. Here's why families most often have difficulty with it. There are specific identifying pieces of information required to establish your FSA ID. You have to have uniquely to yourself your own Social Security number, name, date of birth, and email address. So what I find most often with all of you fantastic parents out there who are so helpful with your students through these processes is parents are going online and establishing the student's FSA ID to start with, entering the student's name, date of birth, and social, and all that correctly, but then when they enter the email address, more often than not, the parent will list their own email address thinking, well, it's more likely I'll read the information if I get the email directly versus using my student's email address, and the likelihood of them forwarding any important information may not be very high. Well, the problem is now your email address is unique to your student. So if you as the parent now need to apply for your own FSA ID, you cannot use that same email address. So I will start at the very beginning of the application process by encouraging you to, first of all, write down your email address and the FSA ID that you create for yourself. You're not supposed to write down the password. If you do, obviously keep it someplace very, very secure. And keep it unique. So one email address for the student is used and one email address for the parent is used in the ID creation process. They also ask 5 security questions, and a lot of times families forget the answers they provide, and so it's hard to reestablish your ID later. So again, that might be helpful to write down. Again, keep in a very, very secure place. I'm not supposed to encourage you to write information down, but something like this, if you have a secure location, you might want to write it down since you're not going to use it or reference it very often, so it'll be easy to forget these items like your password and security questions. So the student now has an FSA ID and the parent now has an FSA ID, and you're ready to submit the FAFSA application at the government's website, FAFSA.gov. There are some other websites out there similar to the federal government's website, in which some very entrepreneurial people have created sort of like ghost images of the FAFSA, and for paying a small fee, you can submit your FAFSA through them, and they will then enter your FAFSA with the federal processor. You don't want to do that, so make sure that you go to the federal government's website for the FAFSA, which is FAFSA.gov. We at SUNY Plattsburgh suggest that you file your FAFSA for the 2017-2018 year by December 15th. That suggestion stems from the fact that colleges all over receive certain sources of financial aid that are available to the college in a limited supply. So not all students are going to access the federal work-study program, as an example, or the federal SEOG program maybe, or the federal Perkins loan program as an example, because the government only offers a certain allocation to each college. So to be fair, we tend to award those limited resource programs to the students, the applications that arrive the earliest, and of course meet the eligibility criteria. So the recommendation of December 15th is so that we can hopefully access as much possible financial aid as is available to you before any of those limited allocation programs begin to become exhausted. The actual application process for the FAFSA, and I'm giving you some screenshots here of, if I can get my slide forward, give me a moment. Nope. Okay, so you're going to start, here's just a slide for the FSA ID, and I'm giving you the steps to go through the FSA ID, and it does involve providing an email authentication and things like that. And then I'm giving you the slide for the FAFSA. The next biggest problem for the FAFSA application process is families who have already begun doing it. It did become available on October 1st. Many families have submitted, although you're not going to college until the 2017-18 year, many families have submitted the 2016-17 FAFSA already. And that's because the FAFSA currently, since that's the school year we're in, defaults to that application. So if you're not currently in college right now at this moment, and you will not be attending college until about August of 2017, then when you enter the FAFSA website, immediately before you've entered any application information, make sure that you've selected 2017-2018 as your application, and then proceed with submitting it, because you don't want to have to do it twice right away. So FAFSA.gov to submit the actual application. It is a very helpful application process. So they've fine-tuned the application process over the years, and as you work through it online, there are lots and lots of, oh, thank you. I see a question already. So I'm going to jump in because it's relevant to the statement I just gave. So a family has asked what happens if we have applied for the 2016-17 year. If you're not currently a college student, if you're in high school, I'm so sorry that you went through the process, but hey, you're familiar with it already. So you've got the hard part done. You've got that familiarity already. Your application really will be ignored or deactivated is one way to say it by any colleges that were listed on it. We won't respond to it since you're not currently an admitted student. When you do go to submit the 17-18 application, it'll have your data already pre-filled in. So that's helpful because you're not re-entering a lot of the same information. You're just going to sort of breeze through the 17-18 and submit that one. So I'm sorry that it defaulted to the 16-17, but you're well on your way to getting the 17-18 submitted. The actual application for the FAFSA is broken up into 5 sections. The student demographics section asks, who are you? Who is the student? Name, address, social security number, driver's license number. Will you have a high school diploma completed before you enter college? If you are a male, are you registered for selective service? If not, would you allow us to register you? Basic demographic questions like that, background information. The next section of the FAFSA is a series of 9 questions that identifies whether the student is considered for FAFSA purposes to be dependent of a parental unit or independent of a parental unit. Those 9 questions are things such as, are you a veteran? Are you a married individual? Do you have a child of your own? Are you attending at the graduate level? Are you an orphan or ward of the court? Do you have a court-appointed legal guardian? Those types of questions. And for most of you listening in and viewing this webinar, those answers will all be no. Luckily, will all be no. And so most of you, 99% of you, the student dependency section of the FAFSA will result in the student being identified as a dependent student and will need to proceed with providing parental information through the rest of the application process. Section 3 of the FAFSA is where it asks for parent information as well as parent income and assets. Now, parent information is easy. You have to list the parent's name, date of birth, social security number, and then proceed with listing income and asset information for the parent. But the difficult part is really identifying who my parent is. Who my parent is for the purpose of FAFSA may be very different than who the student thinks their parent is. The easiest way to identify who your parent is answering this question. In the home where the student sleeps most of the time, what is the parental unit in that home, under the roof where the student sleeps most of the time? If that parental unit are two biological parents, then you're easy and you submit your FAFSA using both biological parents for the purposes of FAFSA parents. If that home, that roof the student sleeps under most of the time contains one biological parent and no other type of parent, then you're submitting only the information of that one parent. And I keep saying biological, but I should correct myself and say biological or adoptive. If that household, that roof contains a biological or adoptive parent and a step-parent, so there is a marriage involved and a step-parent in that household under that same roof, then the step-parent is also listed as part of the FAFSA as is their income and assets. So that's the easiest way for you to figure out who is proceeding with providing parental data for the FAFSA is who sleeps under the same roof as the student most of the time. Okay? And again, you'll note on the slide that I've got that caution symbol. This may not be the parent who claims the student for income tax purposes, and that's absolutely fine. There is not a correlation at all between who's claiming the student and who is the custodial parent for FAFSA purposes. You can claim the student in your household based on whatever best benefits you for tax purposes or whatever decisions may have come from, you know, a divorce decree or whatever. So that's fine. Once you've identified who the parent is, you provide their name, date of birth, and social security number or names, and then you provide income and asset information. And I do see we have a question. A family has asked that when submitting the 2017-18 FAFSA application, is it okay to use 2015 tax return information? Excellent question. And this year is the very first year that that answer is yes. The government up until this year has always asked for the most recent income tax year for families submitting the FAFSA. So for you guys, normally the government would be asking you to submit this current calendar year income information. But since they pushed up the FAFSA start date to October 1st, they also made the income tax year a year earlier. So this year and every year moving forward, as you submit your FAFSA, you'll submit income information from the prior tax filing years. We call it prior in the financial aid world for us to keep track of this change. For you, for this year, it will be for 2015. So what's great about that is you already have that information. We've already filed our taxes for 2015. You guys did that back in January through April of this year, or maybe extended a little beyond that, but you already have filed your tax return, so the data is already available. Here's what makes that even easier. You don't even have to have your tax return in hand to submit the 2017-18 FAFSA. Because several years ago, the FAFSA and the IRS worked together to develop a system where the information from your IRS tax return can be transferred back to your FAFSA through something called an IRS data retrieval process. So as we're at the section where parents are providing income and assets, as you work through that section, there will be a series of questions that ask, have you already filed a 2015 tax return? If so, was it a joint tax return or a foreign tax return? A couple questions like that. Has it been at least 6 weeks since you filed your tax return? And for most of you, it will be yes. And as you get through those series of questions, you'll have a box appear on screen that says, you are eligible to continue with reporting your income information through the IRS data retrieval process. Would you like to do this process? And if you click the button, It'll ask you to confirm some information that was provided on your IRS tax return, such as your mailing address, your tax filing status, and your name, of course. And then if they confirm all of that with the IRS, your data that's on your tax return, your adjusted gross income, and some other pertinent information will appear on screen. They'll ask you to confirm that information and then transfer it back to your FAFSA. So you don't even have to have your tax return handy because they will do the information sharing for you. There is some income information and asset information that doesn't come through on the IRS tax return that you'll have to report separately. The FAFSA application asks for sources of untaxed income, such as child support and interest income. It also asks for the value of your cash, savings, and checking account balances, and the net worth of your assets and investments. So these are things like your stocks and bonds and real estate properties and things like that, anything that would fall under the category of an asset or investment. You'll see that I put a little notation on the screen. There are some assets that are considered protected and therefore are not part of the FAFSA process. They're not considered an asset for the review, and that's great. They are protected. So you do not report the value of the home you live in. They don't expect you to sell your house to send your kids to college. You do not report any untaxed Social Security benefits, any total values of any designated retirement accounts, and you do not report the value of your life insurance policies. So those are all protected assets and are not part of the FAFSA application. Okay, so as you work your way through the FAFSA, there's all kinds of helpful tips along the way. At the end, you'll sign with your FSA IDs that you've gathered for the student and at least one parent in the household, and then you submit your application. On the submission page of the FAFSA, there's some helpful information that gives you some detail about your college's graduation rates and such. But there's also this really nice link. It's a little funky looking orange arrow that says, click here to continue with your New York State aid application. What's great about that link is it's going to direct you out to the New York State financial aid application for the New York State TAP grant. And the link will allow your data from the FAFSA to immediately be transferred to your TAP application. So you're not having to retype in a lot of the same information you've just provided. You do want to submit an application to New York State. So as I mentioned at the beginning, there are two main financial aid applications, the federal aid application, the FAFSA, and the New York State aid application for the New York State TAP grant. So following that link from your FAFSA will get you to the TAP grant application. They do have a separate login process, so you'll have to create a user ID and a PIN to enter New York State's application, but it's not complicated. And then your data will be pre-filled in. You'll just double check some of the information as you move along. There's a couple of questions you need to answer that are not automatically transferred from your FAFSA. Review your application and submit it. New York State will accept your signatures from your FAFSA as your signatures for your TAP application. So in one session at the computer, you'll be done with both applications. If something happened that you missed the link at the end of your FAFSA and didn't follow it out to the state application, on your screen is the website for the TAP application, tapweb.org, and you can go there a few days after filling out your FAFSA and still submit your application. Also on this slide, I'm giving you a resource. New York State has several other grant and scholarship opportunities for students attending colleges in New York State, and those vary. The reason that those grants are available and who qualifies, the eligibility criteria varies amongst each award. Some of the awards are for students who have strong academic excellence. Some of the awards are for students who are interested in becoming a math or science teacher or becoming a nurse, or maybe who themselves is a volunteer fire person. There is Native American aid from New York State, various reasons that they offer different aid programs, but their website, hesc.ny.gov, will get you to the list of other resources available to New York State. It's very easy to scan through and identify any possible awards that you might be able to apply for separately. with New York State. I've also listed two websites that the state sponsors: Start Here, Get There, and Go College New York. Both of those websites are designed to answer a lot of the questions that you have about going to college that are very general. How do students adjust to dorm life, and what do we need to be prepared to bring with us to college, and how does a student translate a major into a potential career opportunity? Just things that you may be wondering about this next educational adventure. And those websites are very well designed and very easy to work through. Again, just as an additional resource for you as you go through this college-bound process. And I'm giving you the website for New York State here. The circle for student access is how you can review your New York State CAP application once it's submitted and go back into it and make changes. And then the circle around pay is where you'll find the list for other New York State awards. I should have mentioned, so I'll do it now before I forget again, both the FAFSA and the TAP applications ask you to list your college selections. And I really do think all of you should be planning to attend SUNY Plattsburgh. But just on the chance that you're still considering other colleges, I just want to point out to you that it's absolutely fine to submit these applications, list however many colleges you are currently considering. You can return to both applications at any time after they're submitted and processed to make updates to them. So if that update involves correcting a misreported income figure or adding another college selection or removing a college selection, whatever reason you need to return to the applications, that will always be an opportunity for you. So don't feel like you have to have your college decision finalized before you can go through this process. Okay. Couple more slides. There are other ways that you're going to seek financial aid for paying for college. And it is a bit of a process, but one look at any of your college websites. Our college website has a terrific list of our tuition and fee charges as well as room and board charges. And if you add up all of those numbers, it adds up to a big figure here and everywhere. So there are many reasons to apply for scholarships, but the biggest reason is because you need as much money to help you pay for college as is possible. So I'm giving you some resources, some additional application processes or tools that you can utilize to find more money to help paying for college possible. Your guidance office in your high school and your school districts is a wonderful resource for you because they are a connection to a lot of your local philanthropic agencies. So whether it's your Elks Club or your local VFW or Kiwanis Club or any other philanthropic organizations in your region or community, they're going to know about the resources that are available and usually have scholarship applications in their office or on their websites to point you to. And high schools love to give out scholarships at graduation time. There's often a ceremony involved. So become very familiar with your guidance office. Stop by there quite frequently from about December, January, and on to find out about the really great scholarship opportunities that are available in your community. I've listed 4 websites. There are, of course, tons of websites out there that you can utilize to look for scholarships all across the country. These 4 websites, the reason I'm comfortable listing them for you is because they do tend to offer good screening of the scholarships that they advise you of. So I'm not saying that you don't need to be cautious about illegitimate scholarships offers and scams that may exist, but these websites do a pretty good job of weeding out the junk and pointing you towards really useful scholarship opportunities. They also tend to have very comprehensive information, so you don't have to look at many scholarship websites. All of these websites offer you the opportunity to set up a profile, a student profile, and it'll ask you things like your academic achievements and your activities after high school and in the evenings and weekends, and are you employed as a student? What do you do for fun? What are your hobbies? It even asks things like your ethnicity and your religious affiliations and things like that. And as you set up that profile and then submit the search for scholarships, it'll give you a list of scholarship opportunities that are relevant to the profile that you set up. So it's very easy when you have that list to weed through it and identify the scholarship opportunities that interest you and how to submit application to them. I also want you to think a lot about all those involvements you've had all these years, all those things you do after school and on weekends, and all those organizations you're involved with as a member or affiliated with, because most of those organizations have opportunities for scholarship or tuition-free loans or tuition waivers for college. But you do have to inquire with them to find out about those opportunities. You have to be involved with them or be a member and inquire to explore those opportunities. And then students and parents, I want you to think about your employers. There's lots and lots of employers that offer scholarships for colleges, or union affiliations that offer scholarship opportunities. So check with your HR department or your manager or your payroll office to see if there's any ways that you can access more money to help make college affordable. I've listed our website here. If you go to the Cost and Aid page, it will give you all kind of information about our current college costs that you can plan for. We have a great college calendar that projects out many, many semesters, so you know when it's time to move in and when it's time to register, and when classes end, that you get a nice break and all that kind of stuff. We have a great scholarship page that gives you great information on our scholarship opportunities here at SUNY Plattsburgh. And then in the upper right-hand corner is a link to your My Plattsburgh account. As soon as you apply for admissions to our college, you will be offered the opportunity to have a ID and log in to SUNY Plattsburgh. Your portal, that My Plattsburgh portal, will not only give you information about your admissions application, but also about your financial aid application. We will use that portal to communicate with you when we need to ask you for follow-up information to finalize your financial aid application, and share with you your financial aid award letter, communicate when changes occur because we now found out about a scholarship that you're being offered, and things like that. So you'll use that portal for everything, from registering to submitting your housing application. There's an awesome checklist that you'll work through during the admissions process to get ready to become a student at SUNY Plattsburgh. So it'll become a very useful tool for you now throughout your enrollment here. Okay, two more. I'm just summarizing the process for financial aid. We're going to go into, in a later webinar, what you do with your financial aid award letter, how you interpret it, how you understand it, how you compare your financial aid award letter to other colleges, how you make decisions about paying for college if you're not being offered financial aid and such. That's later. For tonight, what I'm just really directing you through is the initial application process for financial aid. So to review, you'll complete your 2017-18 FAFSA application at fafsa.gov. You'll proceed from there to the link that directs you out to the New York State TAP application and submit that as well for 17-18. You'll become admitted to SUNY Plattsburgh shortly over the next couple months, and then following your admissions, within a few weeks, you'll receive your financial aid award letter from our office. We send our financial aid award letters as a PDF attachment in an email. And the email address we use is the email address you list on your FAFSA application. So you'll keep an eye out in that email for our financial aid award letter. You'll also be able to view your financial aid award package on your My Plattsburgh account. And our award letter will give you very useful information about the process that follows now that we have your FAFSA, what you do to finalize your financial aid awards that are offered to you. We even provide you a calculation of what your total costs will be as a student, and what your options are for paying your college costs. So it's a very handy tool. We hope to begin sending financial aid award letters out around mid-December. So if you're admitted, we'll get you your award letter soon thereafter. I noticed a question that came through. A family is asking, can I put how much rent I pay and other household bills on my FAFSA application? That is an excellent question, and you'll notice, you did notice, that I didn't mention anything when we were talking about the FAFSA application about reporting expenses in the household. It's not that the government doesn't care, but the calculation, what the FAFSA does is calculate something called EFC, Expected Family Contribution. The expected family contribution comes from the data you report on your FAFSA, such as the size of your household, your income, and your assets. But with that information that you've reported, the government makes some assumptions in their methodology, this calculation, to get to the EFC. They understand that families have a lot of expenses. Things like your basic household expenses every month, such as food and heat and utilities. They understand that, and they build in an assumption that all families are going to have those types of expenses. They even take it a step further, and they assume that as households you're going to pay taxes, and they recognize the state that you report as your state of residence and build in a tax allowance. They even build in an allowance for working individuals. So if you're a parent who works out of the household, they recognize that you have to travel to get to work, so you have gas expenses to get to work probably, and you might even have to dress professionally or have some type of specific attire for work. So they build in assumptions for that as well. So to answer your question, no, you actually do not report anywhere on your FAFSA your actual expenses as a household individually, but be aware that the government does have many, many assumptions built in. So they know that if your family has a $50,000 income, that whole income is not available to pay for college. They're going to assume that most of that is being used to support the household, plan for retirement, and those types of things. And they build this expected family contribution utilizing those assumptions in their methodology. Now, I should mention here that the government does allow financial aid offices to do something called special circumstance consideration. So if you have a household expense or something very unusual and extreme in your household that does not come through clearly on the FAFSA, an example I could provide would be, let's say that in your household you have a very large out-of-pocket medical expense for one of your household members. Or maybe recently you had flooding in you had to deal with some major financial outlay due to flooding, or you had a windstorm in your area and your roof blew off and you had to replace your roof. Obviously, the government understands that sometimes extreme circumstances occur, and there's nowhere to indicate that on the FAFSA, and that's where you'll work with us. On the very last slide, I've provided you all of our staff in financial aid, our contact information. You need to reach out to us when there's something that we need to be aware of that wouldn't be clear from just scanning your FAFSA, something that's unique to your household and is significant and extreme, causing a financial burden on you. And there are times that we can take that information under advisement and possibly identify either further financial aid opportunities that may be available to you, or offer you some flexibility with some of your costs of going to college or the timing of those costs. So reach out to us. We've got a tremendous staff, and we all answer the phones. You'll get me on the phone at any time when you call. So give us a call or send us an email and say, hey, I need your help, or I want to talk with you about our individual circumstances and see what we can do to help. I have a couple more inquiries, and we're at the stage where please feel free to submit your inquiries because I don't have any other information to share with you at this stage. One question was, what can I do now to get help with financial aid? Really, for us, it does begin with the application. So that conversation that we'd love to have with you about your individual circumstances and how you're going to make paying for college possible is so much easier to have when we have your FAFSA in front of us, when we can look it up and say, oh, okay, I see you have a family of 4 and there will be 2 of you in college next year. That's going to be tough getting 2 college bills paid. Let's talk about your options for payment plans or financial aid opportunities or whatever. So start with your applications that we talked about tonight, and then definitely reach out to us via email or phone and say, hey, let's talk. Another inquiry is, what scholarships does the school, SUNY Plattsburgh, offer? I actually would probably totally mess up trying to actually verbalize all of our individual scholarships. We have scholarship opportunities for incoming freshmen and transfer students. Most of them are based on academic achievement, although there are other criteria to our scholarship matrix. So the best advice I have for you is visit our website, plattsburgh.edu. There's a link for scholarship opportunities, and it's got a terrific chart of our scholarship programs available and what the criteria is for them. And then also there's a scholarship calculator online, so you can enter information such as your SAT scores and your zip code and whatever else we ask for, and it'll give you a response of what scholarship opportunities might be available to you. Another inquiry that has arrived is, can you explain again the process? Oh, give me a second, I'm going to scroll up because I lost it on screen. When does the award letter go out? So you're going to get a different answer from any of the colleges that you've applied to. So specifically here at SUNY Plattsburgh, we hope to begin sending financial aid award letters around mid-December and any time thereafter. So if you do not become admitted to the college until the start of January, we'll send you your award letter soon after you become admitted. If you're admitted already by the middle of December, then we will send you your award letter as soon as we can. There are some colleges who will not be sending financial aid award letters that early. This earlier October 1st application cycle was a bit of a surprise. The feds didn't prep us on that. So many colleges are waiting for software to become available. You may not hear from all of your colleges in December, but hopefully you'll hear from us or very soon thereafter. And if you've filed your FAFSA and if you've been admitted to the college and you have not gotten your financial aid award letter, definitely send us a quick email or call and say, when can I expect to receive it? But we tend to be fairly timely and fairly responsive. So you shouldn't have much of a delay or much of a concern. We hope to get it out to you really quick here. We have an inquiry, a family who has indicated that there are 2 individuals claimed as dependents on the tax return. However, there are 5 members in the household. Will it be taken into consideration? Absolutely. So as I mentioned, there's not really a correlation between how taxes are filed and how the FAFSA becomes processed. So for the FAFSA, you can list anybody in your household who lives in that household and who you provide at least the majority of their financial support to. If that happens to be 5 individuals, but only 2 of them are listed on your tax return, that's absolutely fine. That's not going to be a concern at all. We will take under advisement that you have 5 household members in the EFC calculation process. Any other questions this evening? Okay, well, you have our contact info to reach out to us anytime. Thanks for being with me tonight, and I hope to talk to you again soon, and good luck with your fall application process. Please feel free to reach out to us through that process if you have any questions along the way. Thanks, and have a great night. There were 10. There was 11 at one point.